friends. Welcome back to 365 Days of Love and Miracles with the Course in Miracles. My name is Arlene Geres, and I am so glad that you are here. Please remember to listen right until the very end, because we have a special treat for you. And if you enjoyed today's video, please click like and subscribe down below, because this helps others to find us on YouTube. Today's lesson is lesson number 338. I am affected only by my thoughts. This is our 8th lesson in the section, What is the Ego? We are asked to read that entire section before we start today's lesson, so let's do that now. The ego is idolatry, the sign of limited and separated self, born in a body, doomed to suffer and to end its life in death. It is the will that sees the will of God as enemy and takes a form in which it is denied. The ego is the proof that strength is weak and love is fearful. Life is really death, and what opposes God alone is true. The ego is insane. In fear, it stands beyond the everywhere, apart from all, in separation from the infinite. In its insanity, it thinks it has become a victor over God himself. And in its terrible autonomy, it sees the will of God has been destroyed. It dreams of punishment and trembles at the figures in its dreams, its enemies who seek to murder it before it can ensure its safety by attacking them. The Son of God is egoless. What can he know of madness and the death of God when he abides in him? What can he know of sorrow and of suffering when he lives in eternal joy? What can he know of fear and punishment, of sin and guilt, of hatred and attack, when all there is surrounding him is everlasting peace, forever conflict-free and undisturbed in deepest silence and tranquility? To know reality is not to see the ego and its thoughts, its words, its acts, its laws, and its beliefs, its dreams, its hopes, its plans for salvation, and the cost belief in it entails. In suffering, the price for faith in it is so immense that crucifixion of the Son of God is offered daily at its darkened shrine, and blood must flow before the altar where its sickly followers prepare to die. Yet will only one lily of forgiveness change the darkness into light, the altar to illusions to the shrine of life itself, and peace will be restored forever to the holy minds which God created as his Son, his dwelling place, his joy, his love, completely his, completely one with him. Are you able to accept that you are completely one with God, my friends? Always remember that forgiveness is the bridge that takes us from the world of the ego across the bridge of forgiveness to the world of God. When we lay that lily of forgiveness at the feet of God, we are able to accept our perfect love, joy, peace, and happiness, which only abides when we are living in the world of God. The more we do these practices, the less that we are going to even notice the world of the ego. It will simply cease to exist within us. We will not see the ego and its thoughts, its words, its acts, its laws, its beliefs, its dreams, its hopes, or its foolish plans for salvation. It simply does not exist. Let's read today's lesson. I am affected only by my thoughts. We've been doing these practices now for 338 days. We started at lesson 1 by saying things like, this table is not real, this chair is not real, and so on. Those beginning lessons just seem so strange because these were foreign ideas to us, in which we learned to see that our thoughts create our reality, and we are affected only by our thoughts. Let's read the lesson. It needs but this to let salvation come to all the world. For in this single thought is everyone released at last from fear. Now has he learned that no one frightens him and no one can endanger him. He has no enemies and he is safe from all external things. His thoughts can frighten him, but since these thoughts belong to him alone, he has the power to change them and exchange each fear for a happy thought of love. He crucified himself, yet God has planned that his beloved Son will be redeemed. Let's talk about it. Our thoughts are so powerful that if we are completely caught up in the world of fear, that we will eventually make ourselves sick. This has been proven in many, many cases. The opposite is also true. When we are living in the world of God, when we have learned to accept that we are only pure love, and we are able to project that love out onto the world, we see love everywhere. We have the ability to heal ourselves. It is such exciting work, my friends, to recognize how incredibly powerful our thoughts are. When we take responsibility for our thoughts, then we are able to change our world, and the Course tells us that we change the entire world. I am affected only by my thoughts. When we understand that, we naturally want to stop living in the world of fear, and we want to live in the world of love. When we release ourselves from the world of fear, we release everyone else along with us. Isn't that a beautiful promise? Do you have any trouble accepting that you are 100% safe in God's world, my friend? Nothing can harm you. Nothing is going to hurt you. Two powerful examples of this are stories that I recently heard. One was of a woman who was carjacked. The man who took her hostage held a gun on her. She immediately asked God to help her to see the love in this man and to have only love for him. She talked to him calmly. She told him about God's love. She told him that he was God's beautiful, beloved, precious child. And she told him that she was not afraid of him, that she had only love for him. Even thinking about the incredible faith of this woman brings tears to my eyes. Eventually, he relaxed. You see, when someone is in that state, they are so fearful, they are so angry, they are so upset. But underneath all of that anger and that upset is always fear. This man was able to relax, and he let her go. The second story I have is of a man who was sleeping in his bed when he heard an intruder rattling around downstairs. He did the same thing. He went and he told this man about God's love. He asked him if he would like to have a cup of tea and something to eat. So he did that, and he sat and he talked to the man, and he told this man how much he is loved. He told him that there's nothing to be afraid of. Every single one of us is God's beautiful, beloved child. He gave the man some money, and he encouraged him to change the way he was living. And he encouraged him to accept the truth that he too is God's beautiful, beloved child. The intruder left. The man went back to sleep, and it was a happy ending for all. The third story that I have for you is from Corrie ten Boom. Corrie ten Boom is the author of several books, one called The Hiding Place, in which her family was hiding Jews in a secret room behind a cupboard during the Second World War. Eventually, an informer turned them in, and Corrie and her father and her sister were arrested. Her father died in jail. Corrie and her sister were taken to Ravensbrück, one of the concentration camps, where Corrie's sister died. Corrie was released just before the end of the war, and she went on to share her incredible experience of being held in the prison camps. Underlying her story was always one of forgiveness and love. At one of her talks, she recognized one of the guards who was especially cruel to her and her sister Betsy. That guard came up to her at the end of the meeting, reached out his hand, and said, "I heard you say that God forgives all, my friends. Will you forgive me?" And in that moment, Corrie said she could not, on her own strength, forgive that guard. But she prayed and she asked, "Dear God, I cannot do this on my own. Will you give me the strength to forgive this man?" She reached out her hand and she looked in his eyes, and with all the love that was in her, she said, "I forgive you, brother." In that moment, she knew that she was free. These kinds of stories have a great impact on me. This is the power of our thoughts, my friends. When we change our thoughts to thoughts of love, we are changed, and thus we save the world. If you would like to close your eyes, I'll read today's prayer. Then we'll discuss it, and I'll read it one more time at the end of today's lesson. Your plan is sure, my Father. only yours. All other plans will fail, and I will have thoughts that will frighten me until I learn that you have given me the only thought that leads me to salvation. Mine alone will fail and lead me nowhere, but the thought that you gave me promises to lead me home because it holds your promise to your Son. Let's talk about it. Only God's plans can save us, my friends. If Corrie ten Boom or the other two stories that I had shared were living in the world of the ego, if they were living out their plans, the stories would have turned out very differently. Perhaps in the first two stories, the people may have been killed. The people who intended to harm them may have been taken off to jail. We have no way of knowing how the story might have ended differently, but we do know that that story is played out over and over again when the person who is being robbed or the person who is being carjacked operates from the position of fear. That is when people get hurt. That is when things turn out badly. We can change our story, my friends. We can stop relying on the plans of the ego and only rely on God's plan of love. One of the main goals of A Course in Miracles is to help us to recognize any time that we have fear or anxiety of any kind, we are caught up in the world of the ego. We can stop, we can bring ourselves home to God, and only God's plans never fail. God has given us the only thought that will lead us to salvation. God's thoughts promise to lead us home to Him, where love, peace, joy, and happiness live deep inside of every single one of us. Let's come home to God today and every day, my friends. For our practice sessions today, first thing in the morning, last thing just before we go to sleep, we are asked to read or listen to the entire lesson and then to sit in meditation for as long as we please as we let these ideas sink deep into our beings. And we recognize that we are affected only by our thoughts. Let's say our morning prayer. Dear God, please give me your mind to think. Give me your ears to hear. Give me your eyes to see. Give me your words to speak. And give me your heart to love. Amen. For our hourly practice periods, often in between, at any time that we are upset for any reason, we simply state today's idea. I am affected only by my thoughts, and then we allow these ideas to sink deep into our being. If you would like to close your eyes, I'll read today's lesson one more time. Your plan is sure, my Father, only yours. All other plans will fail. All other plans will fail, and I will have thoughts that will frighten me until I learn that you have given me the only thought that leads me to salvation. Mine alone will fail and lead me nowhere, but the thought you gave me promises to lead me home because it holds your promise to your Son. Thanks so much for listening right until the end, my friends. If you enjoyed today's video, please share the love. Tell someone about these videos. Encourage them to start at lesson 1 and only do one lesson a day. Are you ready for our special treat?
This is the Temple of Apollo. It's really something if we could imagine this having a roof on it, people here. There's a statue. Beautifully, beautifully done. And there's Bracy.
I am affected only by my thoughts. Have a day of thinking with God's mind, my friends. I love you.